Welcome back to America Decides. As we've been talking about, the Supreme Court upheld a law today that would ban TikTok in the United States beginning Sunday. Concerned users of this highly popular social media app, but might not be locked out right away. There's a process that goes on here. The Biden administration says it's not going to enforce the ban, meaning that process, the timetable of it, how noticeable it will be, falls to President-elect Trump when he is sworn in on Monday. To talk and learn more about this, Jan Crawford joins us, as does Alan Rosenstein. Jan, of course, is the CBS News chief legal correspondent. Alan is associate professor of law at the University of Minnesota Law School. Jan, let's just break down what the court did and what it let stand.
Well, I mean, the court unsigned opinion, which is notable because the court and those justices were really speaking with one voice.
So 9-0 essentially is the way to interpret that.
The ultimate decision was unanimous,
right.
Yes. I said, look, we recognize that 170 million people rely on this app for, their source of community, for their ability to express themselves and be creative. But that cannot overcome what Congress concluded was serious and well-documented national security concerns. So they were not going to give TikTok this kind of last-minute reprieve and save them from this law. Now, you pointed out that, perhaps there's some things that could be in the works. President Biden has indicated he is not going to give any kind of extension, and he's going to leave that to, President-elect Trump, who now likes TikTok, apparently, and is saying he can do some kind of deal or find some kind of solution. The U.S. CEO of TikTok today said, we're really grateful President Trump wants to find a solution. So, he's trying to drive that point home. But I don't know what it can be. I mean, there's not a lot that the law is the law. Mm-hmm. Congress passed this overwhelmingly bipartisan support. And now it's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. We are getting what we asked for.
Did we really mean that?
Yeah. And
exactly.
so not all of them. And we saw some senators today, including like Senator Hawley and others saying, this is the law and the law should be followed with good reason because TikTok can do all these kind of things and we can't have our foreign adversaries. So, we'll see. But the clock, time is running out. And it won't go dark. The law doesn't require it to go dark unless TikTok wants it to.
Right. Alan, I want to get your perspective on this term of art that's in the law, foreign adversary control. And is that a way that TikTok can find, or does it necessarily need to find a U.S. owner? Or does it need to find an owner that can pass this foreign adversary control metric?
Yeah, that's right. So TikTok doesn't need a U.S. owner. It just needs an owner that's not one of 4 countries, China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran. So if it finds a U.S. owner, a Canadian owner, an Australian owner, a European owner, it's going to be fine. But the real problem here has always been not finding an owner. There are plenty of people who would love to buy TikTok, but rather the Chinese government permitting ByteDance to sell TikTok to someone else.
And Alan, what is the Chinese government's interest in keeping not only TikTok, but ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest, it's the algorithm behind it and the data that flows from it?
Well, there are a couple of reasons that the Chinese government might not want to sell TikTok. I think the main one is that TikTok is most useful to China if it is, in fact, controlled by ByteDance for precisely the national security reasons that Congress cited when enacting the law, data privacy and content manipulation. But the other reason is that if TikTok can't be a Chinese company, I think it's actually better for China if TikTok is banned outright, because then the Chinese have a talking point when they themselves are criticized for censorship, for the Great Firewall of China, for balkanizing themselves off from the rest of the internet. They can look at America and say, hey, look, you guys do this too. So I think it's really in no one's interest unless Trump does some real diplomacy with Chinese President Xi Jinping. But that raises its own concerns about what exactly is Trump going to give up in order to get this deal.
What are the legal implications for Apple, Google, Oracle, who serve this process, meaning the TikTok application and platform?
So they're the ones that the law actually is enforced against, and they have to pay fines up to $5,000 per user for facilitating TikTok. And given that TikTok has 170 million users, that those numbers add up pretty quickly. There's a lot of talk about the Biden administration not enforcing the law in the last day and a half, or Trump saying that he's not going to enforce the law. But enforcing the law is actually not the point. The law is the law on the 19th, and these companies will be subject to it. So whether or not Trump enforces the law, these companies and their legal counsel in particular are going to have to ask tough questions about, do we want to go out on a limb and continue violating this law, even if Trump has said for the moment, because of course he's very mercurial and changes his mind a lot, that Trump has said for the moment he's not going to enforce it.
Jan, did the court in any way, shape, or form plow new ground on the First Amendment, or just remind people of where it's always been?
Very narrow ruling, kind of keeping, and because the rapid time frame, the quick turnaround, which they pointed out in the decision, I think that is pretty much cabin to this case. That's how they would hope it to be. And they specifically said that they were not going to decide some of these bigger issues that were out there. They were going to keep it very narrowly focused on this case and this law.
You mentioned it, but just to remind the audience how quick a turnaround this is.
Yeah,
I mean,
2 weeks, really,
2 weeks.
basically.
Arguments 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, they granted it, then they had arguments last Friday, and now a decision today with that deadline looming of the 19th.
Highly unusual and significant. Jan Crawford, Alan Rochenstein, thank you very much for your expertise. I appreciate it.